Welcome to the Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, joining today's podcast is my friend Scott Bankhead, former MLB pitcher, Olympic medalist, and owner of North Carolina Baseball Academy. Welcome, Scott. I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking to you. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, it will be. Hey, you've had a great career in baseball as a pitcher, starting in 1981 when you earned National High School Player of the Year. And then you were an All-American in 1983 and 84 with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And it doesn't end there. You were a member of the 1984 Olympic team that won a silver medal. And then you were drafted in the first round in 1984 by the Royals. And after only 31 games in the minors, you were called up to the big leagues. And then you spent 10 years in the big leagues with the Royals, the Mariners, the Reds, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the A's. Wow. After that, you spent 4 years as a pitching coach for the USA Baseball 18U national team and served as head pitching coach for the 2018 Pan Am Games in Panama and 2019 World Cup Games in South Korea. You're also a member of the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame and North Carolina American Legion Hall of Fame. Wow, that's a solid baseball career.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate you saying all those things. A lot of those things I'm so old I forgot about. So hey, thanks for mentioning them.
Yeah, I like to mention those before we start the show so that people understand that when you're talking, you know what you're talking about. You've lived through it. You've done all those things. And it doesn't end there either. Like, for example, I also noticed that in Baseball Savant, they have you in 1989 as leading the AL in triples when you pitched 210 innings. What's that about?
Well, if you combine my two major league hits together, it only goes to second base. So no way I ever hit a triple. I was playing in the American League. I don't know how they got that stat. I didn't even bat, obviously, in 1989. So that's kind of that's a mistake on their part, but kind of an interesting thing. People go, I wonder why they have that listed for him. Was he Ohtani before his time? Not even close. Not even close.
That one really turned my head. That's why I had to send it to you.
Right. Well, I did correct you on that, right? I did say.
Oh yeah. I just had to put it in because I thought it was funny.
Right.
Hey, you're currently the owner of one of the best baseball academies of the country, the North Carolina Baseball Academy in Greensboro, North Carolina. Can you tell us about your academy and what it does?
Sure. 2 years after my career ended, I was looking around what I was going to do. I wanted to combine baseball with the love of teaching the game. And so I decided to buy some land in Greensboro, North Carolina. I grew up close to here, live close to here now, and wanted to develop an indoor and outdoor training facility where we could help kids, where we could be a resource for not only the children, but coaches in our area, provide instruction, provide camps, provide batting cages, sports performance training, some retail things. So it was a business for me, but it was something that I really enjoyed. And I found that out by being a volunteer high school coach for a couple of years after I finished playing. So I put all those things together, and I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have been here for 25 years now. And I've had a great time building relationships with people, because it's all about the people. It's about relationships with the children, the parents, the game of baseball, doing good things, passing things forward. For me, has made the 25 years be a joy and went by really quick.
Yeah, and I know some big time coaches that think very highly of you. That's how we met, you know.
Right. Well,
in baseball, everyone always talks about maximum velocity all the time, and I think you need velocity. And on this show, we try to focus on other things you might need, such as control, command, sequencing, movement, changing speeds, mental training, and another big one, character. What was your biggest strengths as a pitcher?
I think, well, from my perspective, I think it was my competitiveness, my ability to want to be better than the hitter, wanted to prepare the right way, have a great routine, understand who I was as a pitcher, what I did best, what my strengths and weaknesses were. And I felt like I had a great ability to read hitters. And without all the scouting reports that they have now, looking at video, taking the advanced scouts reports, and trying to put a game plan together based on what I knew about the hitters in a particular lineup, to be able to go out there and use my stuff to attack their weaknesses, command the baseball, and get outs, which is the most important thing that I ever did as a pitcher.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because I think they were describing Emo was in front of a bunch of high school players that you told me about,
Yep.
and he asked them what's the job of a pitcher, and it took them quite a while to say get outs, or maybe he had to tell them that. I always think you like you have to win that pitch, you have to win the at bat, and you want to win the game. So it's about winning, and when they lose sight of that, they lose sight of what they really ought to be doing. You know.
No question. But Emo did do that. He drew a pyramid on a big whiteboard, drew a little lineup at the very top of it, and said, up here at the top is what all major league hitters or major league pitchers do. That's what they do. That's why they stay in the major leagues. That's why they get to the major leagues. What is it? And the kids went through every data point known to man. And Emo smiled and went out to the side and wrote OUTS out there. And they all, their mouths dropped. And he said, no, he said, at the major league level and all levels, for you to get there, you've got to be able to consistently get outs. You've got to be able to consistently win. You've got to be able to adapt and adjust. And that's where he wanted to start his talk that night, was on all those things, and not about them chasing numbers and trying to be somebody else, because at that period in time, most of the data was 100% on major league pitching. So it's unrealistic to think a 15-year-old is going to chase those kind of numbers. And he wanted them to understand that get outs, those strikes, command the baseball, would get them opportunities to pitch and continue to move forward in the game of baseball.
Yeah, and that the goal isn't the metrics. The metrics are a means towards the goal, which is winning. So, like, if the metrics, a certain metric's going to help you throw a better pitch and help you win, good. But the goal isn't to have the best metrics. For example, remember that guy, Steve Dalkowski? He was called the White Lightning, and they thought he threw 110, and he never got out of the minor leagues. This was in the 70s, I think.
All right.
Meaning that you could throw really hard, but just throwing really hard is not enough. Or you could spin it the most. Well, that's not it. You still have to get outs.
That's correct.
Now, I think another big thing, like you had mentioned, like Dan Hefner at DBU has a great saying that he taught my son, which is winners find a way. So, like, when he's out there in the mound and something's going not the way he'd wanted it, he thinks back to himself, winners find a way. You dig down and you find a way. And that's what you were saying about you always found a way to compete. That's a great quality,
Well, I think when the game's on the line, all your preparation, all your routines and things come back to your ability to execute, your ability to compete in that moment, to get the big outs. A lot of kids will start out, and I'm using kids as an example. They want to do all their throwing off the mound out of their windup. And I tell them that's great, but we got to spend equal or more time in the stretch, because your biggest outs in the game are going to come from the stretch position. Tight moments, those are when you got to rely on your preparation, your work you've done before, and you've got to be able to execute in those positions, and you got to be able to compete. You got to be able to say, I've got to throw the right pitches in the right times, in the right zones, to be able to get this hitter to chase, to pop up, do whatever. And it might be in the third or fourth at bat that the young person has against you, and you've got to figure out a way. So I think those are very good qualities to have as a pitcher.
Absolutely. In baseball, there's a lot of slang. So when I say command, someone else might say locating or executing or quality strikes. And I always try to emphasize on the show that they need to know that these are all words for command. And to compound that, there's no easy way to measure command in a game. Now, in training, you could use my command tracker target, but that wasn't around until this year. So how would you describe control, and how would you describe command?
Well, control for me is what the 9-year-old or 10-year-old starts trying to do, which is just throw the ball in the strike zone, somewhere in and around the strike zone. They're learning to pitch. As you get older, the high school kid that just has control, same thing. They're just trying to throw the ball in the box, as we say now, in the strike zone to be able to produce strikes or get the ball going into play. I think that's the easiest way to describe control. Command, on the other hand, is the ability to throw the ball where you want to, in and out of the strike zone. And I
I
think
like how you said that. Yeah.
the ability to throw the ball out of the strike zone, make it appear to be a strike, but end up out of the strike zone, creates deception on your pitches, which also comes from your delivery at some time. So effective command would be setting up a 2 or 3 pitch sequence of, how do I want to get this guy out? What's the pitch? Where do I need to go to set the out pitch up? The effective command will be maybe an up and in, hand high inside to get the swing and a miss at a down and away fastball or a down and away breaking ball. And those are things that kids that really understand how to command the baseball and throw it in the strike zone, even all the way up to the major league level and down to the, little league or high school levels, is they learn by practicing how to throw the balls in those areas of the strike zone. And I think those are the guys that can compete at all levels and have a chance to get people out, as we've talked about. And at the younger levels, getting outs gets you opportunities just like it does at the major league level.
Yeah, yeah. And I wrote an article in Baseball Prospectus called The Universal Strike Zone. What I did was I took U.S. Army data, and they had measured thousands of guys. And I used it to come up with a zone that's for the typical 6'2" batter. That's what I based the command tracker target on. And what I found is that the idea is that if you're training to a zone that's the typical zone, it's going to be a lot more effective, because like when guys are throwing to like a little dot 6 feet in the air and trying to gain command that way, I don't know it really translate to a game as if you're throwing to a real zone and real height, width, and everything that you'll have in a game. But another thing that came out of that was that it created a common language. I saw this. So like pitchers that were using it, if I told them I want you to throw a slider number 7, even after they're using the target for a while, I could tell them throw to number 7 without the target being there. They know where number 7 is. So it kind of created a language to like tell them where I want the ball. So like when you were pitching, if you wanted to tell somebody where to throw where you're throwing the ball, how would you have communicated that? Would it be a general area, or could you get specific like I'm talking about?
No, I think you get more specific. The better command you have, the more specific you can become with where you tell somebody you're going to throw it, where the catcher understands where you can locate the ball. For me, it was always trying to pitch on the inside corner, outside corner, up and down both sides, and then out of the strike zone in those areas as well. So I think the better command you have, the better you and the catcher can work together and throw into the different areas, attacking the weaknesses of the hitter, but also pitching to your strengths. Sometimes in pitching, your strength is going to match up to the strength of the hitter. Then it becomes the competitive nature of both athletes and who's going to win that pitch or who's going to win that battle. And, for a long time, people would talk about giving in to hitters. Well, what do you do in certain situations? Do you give in or you don't give in? I don't think giving in is having control and throwing the ball in the strike zone somewhere. I think it's commanding the baseball and going to a spot where you've practiced over and over again, and you can visualize that ball being there. And if it's fastball, then where can I throw it in the zone in the right spot that he knows it's coming? I know I've got to throw it, and I can still be effective and get an out. I think that's where the total package of pitching and understanding pitching allows you to pitch in those situations and not be afraid that, hey, I'm going to throw a 3-2 fastball here, but it's going to be knee high on the outside corner. If it's going to be in the upper quadrant inside, whatever it might be, is what separates the guys that just have control and who have command of the baseball.
Yeah, like a sinker bowling missing too high.
Exactly.
I'll be in trouble. Or
exactly.
like Or if you got a guy hunting your slider, if you can't throw your sinker or your fastball in, you're going to be in trouble. So that can only be done with command.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep.
Remember that I showed you that chart about the levels of command and the scoring. What did you think of that? Because we're trying to come up with a way to kind of quantify the levels of command by age group, like high school and college and minor league. And I was talking to someone today about the major league thing I showed you, and he was suggesting that it might split it out into two levels for the major league. Uh, but it hasn't been done before, and I'm trying to come up with a standardized way of measuring command so you can compare pitchers. So you could say this pitcher has a grade, 80 grade fastball, and he's got a 40 grade command. And I don't think they've been able to do that before.
Right. Well, to me, if I have command as a high school pitcher or I have command as a major league pitcher, the
Totally different. Yeah.
command, it's different because of my stuff, maybe, but the command within the zone can be the same, I think, because down and away on the outside corner, knee high with a four-seam fastball is the same for a high school pitcher as it is for a major league pitcher. How consistent they are to be able to get to those zones is probably different. But if they're practicing to make that part of their arsenal of what they're doing, other than just chasing numbers and spin rates and those types of things, as those things develop for the younger age pitcher, it makes them much more effective as they grow into their body, as they grow into the opportunity to gain velo. That's already in place. So that's something that they don't have to teach as they move to the college game, into the professional game. And
Yeah, I think they get finer and finer. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But
Yeah. I've noticed
if they practice with a purpose, the younger pitcher, the high school pitcher, they practice with a purpose and understand where the strike zone is, the command tracker zone, that type of thing. And they know in and out of that zone where there's misses, where the command is. Then if they're practicing that with a purpose, then they're able to take that into the game. They're able to continue to pitch, get outs, and continue to move in the game of baseball, other than thinking, I throw 82 miles an hour. I've got to be able to do something besides just throw with some spin rate. I've got to be able to command. And then once they get to 86, 88, 90, and maybe up as they grow and mature, then that piece of the puzzle is already there. That might be one of the hardest pieces to teach, is the fine command that you would need to get hitters out as you continue to move every level of the game.
Yeah. Well, that's the purpose of the command tracker target, was that at first you have the whole target, and like just a middle schooler might have trouble getting that. Maybe half the time he hits that. Then you go for a high schooler, you're going just for the strike zone. Then upper level high school, you're trying to split the plate left and right. College, same thing, but smaller zone. So kind of having it fine tuned further and further. And I find it works. Like I've had guys that use that and can hit a single square almost half the time, which you say, oh, not a big deal. But when you have a couple pitchers throw to that target, it humbles. Like at DBU when they first used it, Mike Apposi was telling me it kind of humbled a bunch of guys because they were getting like 20% command. Right. And of course they did very well after that. I think this year they broke their all-time strikeout record. Hey, did you see that 14 pitch plate appearance by Alex Thomas the other day? He hit a home run.
I did not see that, but that's impressive. 14 pitches.
He's a Dodgers pitcher, was throwing 97. All right. He couldn't put him away. 14 pitches, and then he gives up a home run. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about on the show, is that, yes, you can have 97, but you've got to pitch too. You've got to know how to use that. You need a breaking pitch, something off speed. And then there was a Texas-Baltimore game too, and Corey Seager had 5 walks in one game. Impressive. And the Rangers had 11 walks and set an ALDS record. Now, I'd have to give a shout out to Tim Hires. He's a friend. He's a great hitting coach. But they've got great hitters. But what do you think when you see a game like that, a major league game, where they have 11 walks in a game, and these guys are throwing 97 to 100.
You're obviously not going to win a game at any level if you walk 11. That's
Yeah,
not,
they did, and they did.
that's
And
unheard.
Texas moved on. Yeah.
That's unheard of. And going back to your story about Alec Thomas in the 14 pitch at bat, I mean, the only thing I could say about that is the pitcher's throwing 97, but what deception does he have in his delivery? Is there any? It seemed like to me, if he lasted that long in the at bat, that he's seeing the ball very well. It might be 97, but he's seeing it come out very well. He's seeing all his pitches. He's recognizing pitches early. He's laying off pitches that, maybe he wouldn't otherwise if the kid, or the pitcher had a little bit of deception in the delivery. So I would attribute to that a little bit, and the fact that he's just up there competing. But probably he was seeing the ball pretty good off that guy at 97 to last that long, not put it in play weekly, pop it up somewhere to be able to last that long. That would have been what I would have said, and I'm saying to you because I didn't see it. That would be my best guess.
One thing I noticed that they show the pitches from the point of view of the pitcher to show you whether it's deceptive or not. And in that program, Pitch Grader that I saw, you can view the pitches from the point of view of the batter. So if I'm trying to figure out if this pitches are deceptive or not, I want to see what it looks like from the point of view of the batter, not from the point of view of the pitcher. Because the pitcher can think his pitches are deceptive, but he's not seeing what the batter sees, So I like to look at from the point of view of the batter and not from the pitcher, because when you look at it from the point of view of the pitcher, it might look deceptive, and it doesn't look like deceptive at all from the batter, just like you said. I think it's a really important point for pitchers to not think they're deceptive based upon what they see, how their funneling looks. It's got to look deceptive to the batter.
Well, I think your eyeballs as a pitcher tell you that. I think that's a feel thing in the game where you're watching how the batter is reacting to your stuff.
Right.
A lot of times that tells you the deception on the pitch to a certain batter.
Right. That's the key thing I've heard from a lot of big league pitching coaches, that the batters tell you if your pitches are good.
Absolutely. And it goes batter to batter. There may be hitters that don't see the ball well against you, and then there's others that do, and it may be there's no rhyme or reason to it. You may have a guy leading the league in hitting that doesn't pick the ball up against a certain pitcher very well, so he doesn't hit that guy very well. And then there might be a guy batting in the 8-hole hitting 220 that just lights this guy up. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is the guy hitting 220 for whatever reason sees the ball better than the guy hitting 330 leading the league for whatever reason it might be. And so those are things that are hard to quantify in the data. You can't put that in there and take the human eyeballs and say everybody sees every pitch the exact same way, because they don't. And the pitcher has got to be able to read that in the course of the scouting report and the metrics and all the different things that you're trying to do. Because on a particular day, a pitcher's 92-mile-an-hour fastball may be beating certain hitters that they normally don't. Maybe the ball spins a little bit better. Maybe the location of the pitches are better, whatever it might be. So all those have to factor into the success of the pitcher in the battle between the pitcher and the hitter each and every time.
Yeah, I remember once a major league hitting coach had texted me about they're having trouble hitting DeGrom, and he asked me, "What do you see in DeGrom's data?" And so I pulled it up, and I'm looking, and he says, all my batters are saying it looks straight. And at first I was looking in Pitch Grader, and I'm looking at it straight on, like from an umpire point of view. And I'm saying, no, the ball definitely has movement. He said, my batters say it looks straight. What's going on here? And then I moved it to the point of view of the batter, and the way his pitches came in from the point of view of the batter actually looked straight. And in Pitch Grader, you could see that. And you could say, wow, it looks straight. And then when I look here, I could see it really curves, but the batter is seeing straight.
That's advantage to the pitcher, right? So there's
because if you have the right kind of angles,
Yeah, there's the deception, is release angle, is release height, all those things playing in there. The eyeballs are telling you one thing. When they go to swing at it, it's not exactly what they're seeing. And so that's the ability for the pitcher in his delivery, in the makeup of his stuff, to be able to consistently get outs. And you take a guy like DeGrom with his elite stuff, elite command, it makes it almost impossible.
Yeah, but that's an example of what you were saying, is that the numbers don't always tell you what's going on. You still have to see it. Like,
Exactly.
the batter, you have to see what the batter sees.
Yeah.
The numbers will help you kind of adjust things and get a better idea, but they're not the end all. They're only part of a tool chest of things you need to figure out pitching.
That's correct. Yep.
As our good friend Emo says, I like to bring this up in every show: make better pitches instead of trying to make your pitches better. What do you think he means by that?
I think by making better pitches, he's talking about executing pitches in situations, knowing situations, executing pitches. That's going to serve you better than trying to chase making your pitches better. At some point in time, your pitches get to a point to where they are what they are for you as a particular pitcher. So if I take what I have and I make better pitches, I have a better chance of being successful. I think that's what Emo talking about.
Yeah.
And Emo sees a lot and he studies a lot, and I think he's right on with that.
Yeah, because like you can make your slider have more horizontal or vertical break and all that, but that it might be enough as it is if you were to execute or command it. And also, like I've talked to some sinker bowler pitchers that have said on the show that, well, when I execute my sinker in the right locations, it has better sinker movement, because when I miss up in the zone, it's not where I normally throw it. It doesn't have the right movement. So, in other words, learn how to use your stuff and command it and sequence it. And like you said, reading the batters, how they flinch, how they take, all those things are an art that I wish people would talk about more, like how to read it. When they say reading batters, they don't talk too much about how. Like, for example, if you were throwing your fastball and a guy fouled off straight back up, well, what would you think is going on there?
A lot of people say that he's right on your fastball. Okay. A lot of people say that. I say that he's not right on your fastball. That's the way I used to read it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is that I think that they were under the ball. They were not on time with the ball. Okay. I think in the back before all the data and ways to measure things, if you didn't know a hitter, for me, it was always, how did they react to the first pitch fastball down and away? Did he take the ball comfortably? Did he foul it off over the opposite dugout? How did they take that pitch? Did they seem to see that pitch very well? And then from there, I would try to read the hitter from there. Knowing I knew some of the scouting report, but knowing that that was going to be my first indication to a particular hitter, whether they were seeing my fastball well on a particular day. So what the hitter did, where they stand in the batter's box, how they hold their hands, where they stride, are they open? Do they stay open? Are they closed? Do they stay closed? All those things should go into the pitcher's computer, which is their brain and their eyes, to tell you these are some tendencies of the hitter. This is where the hitter typically likes the ball, because they're going to get as comfortable as they can. They want to see the ball the best they can. They want to make their best swings, and this is how they do it. How can I attack that? Knowing that if the guy starts open, he closes, or he's open and he over closes, he's susceptible to the ball in. I know I can get him out in probably, but I don't want to go there maybe early in the count, fall behind, and have to go to another zone. So I think those are all things that a hitter or a pitcher, as they read hitters, tries to determine right off the bat. Now, it may be different in the game today with the data. Maybe they tell you that right off the bat. But I would still, as a pitcher, if I was pitching in today's game, rely a lot on what I saw in the batter's box. Was the hitter making adjustments? Was he changing his stance? Was he getting closer to the plate, further from the plate? Those types of things that hitters should be able to recognize and see with every batter.
Yeah, because they'll get reports with the plus or minus for zones for different batters. But still, like you said, you have to read that situation, that batter at bat, what he did, what he saw, to tell you where and what to throw. That maybe you're going to throw the pitch they tell you to throw, but where you throw it matters a lot, your command. And I think a big thing is that if you have conviction in that pitch, that it's the right pitch in the right location, you're going to throw it a lot better than if you have doubts about that pitch, you know?
There's no question about that. I think in the amateur game today, the pitchers are programmed to throw what the coach calls. And the pitcher, it's taking away the pitcher's ability to feel what's going on in the situation. He can't read the batter. The coach can't see it from the dugout. He's trying to read it, but he is handcuffed because the catcher is giving a sign that he can't shake off. So to your point, Wayne, I may not be convicted with that pitch. I may not want to throw that pitch, but if I'm forced to it, the likelihood I'm going to execute and throw a good pitch and have great command on that pitch is less when I don't have that conviction. 100%, I believe that.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the coach working with the catcher and the pitcher to explain to them what their strategy is so that they kind of know, I know why he's calling that pitch. And then they're going to be a lot more convicted. Like, for example, I think Ricky Meinhold was talking about that the other day, that before the guy throws a pitch, before he catches the ball, before he gets back to the mound, the buzzer is always on its thing telling him what the next pitch was.
Right.
And that a lot of times those pitchers knew why he was calling that pitch, and it really helped his pitchers, you know.
No question. I didn't realize it got back to him that quick. So that's interesting to know.
No, Ricky's real quick because they got the wristband, that pitch comp thing.
Right.
But Ricky's real quick. He knows what he saw. He knows what the next pitch is going to be. And
I got it. Yep.
And you know his reputation. He's great pitching coach.
Absolutely.
Hey, with everyone throwing hard nowadays, I think command is now the separator, meaning that velocity used to be the separator at the higher levels, but it's kind of common now. I think it's less common to see guys with high velocity and command. What do you think about that?
Well, everybody likes the high velocity, and if you compare it with command, you got the elite pitchers.
Oh, yeah.
You got the elite pitchers in the game. If you just go down who are the best pitchers in the major leagues right now as starting pitchers, those are guys going to have high velocity, great command. That's the reason they are who they are. They eat up innings, they get people out, they win a lot of games. They're the ones pitching a lot of times in the playoffs, those types of things. So for me, chasing the velocity is great, but I think you start out with the command piece and then you go from there. Velocity obviously will allow you to get away with a few more mistakes. That there's no question about that, especially the more times a batter sees a hitter in a particular game. But the command, the ability to start pitches in the zone, end up out of the zone, make them appear strikes, not strikes, those types of things, I think, are where the game is going to go to eventually. I think we're going to still see the velocity, but I think instead of it being ball one, ball two, ball three, that type of thing, it's going to be consistent strikes, and you're going to get the Roger Clemens and the DeGroms and the Garrett Coles and all those guys that really have everything that make them a complete pitcher.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. Like you can have more velo and a little bit less command. You can have a lot more command, a little less velo. I think there's a range. Like, you know, you can see guys in major leagues now throwing 92 with their fastball, and they got great command and they're doing very well, or they have a very elite breaking pitch. So I think it's kind of like we're talking about in the shows that, like we're talking about in this show, there are a lot of ways to succeed in baseball. You know, not just one level of high velocity. It can be command, it could be movement, all those things, you know.
No question. No question about that.
How did your command change from warm-up pen to game? Because I've heard guys have a great pen in a bad game. I've had guys that throw a terrible pen and throw a no-hitter.
I think that happens to everybody, 100%. What I always tried to emphasize to myself was I'm going to the bullpen to warm up. I'm not going there to work on my pitches. I'm not going there to get a certain feel for the game. The bullpen mound is different a lot of times than the game mound. The wind might be blowing a certain way in the bullpen, but it's not, the bullpen's angled different than the game mound. So there's going to be a lot of factors involved. So I tried not to put a lot of emphasis on whether I threw well in the pen or I didn't. A pitching coach I had in Seattle for 3 or 4 years, Billy Connors, a great pitching coach. He had a pitch clicker, and he clicked your pitches from the time you started playing catch to the last pitch you threw. I threw in the whole warm-up period, just playing catch in the outfield to the mound, around 62 to 65 total throws. And that was consistent, not because he was counting them, just because that was my routine. That was my preparation. I wasn't going to stand there and throw 20 more pitches to get my changeup better or my slider better or my fastball better command. It was there to get loose and then go on. So I had it happen both ways. Pitched terrible in the pen, not that worried about it, but I'll tell you what it did do, Wayne, and you alluded to this in some of your information you sent me. When it was bad in the bullpen, there was a heightened awareness and focus and concentration that went with you when you went to the mound for the first inning. And sometimes that causes you to have a good game. And then you can be overconfident. You can throw all your pitches great and go out there and things look different. The wind's blowing different. You throw good pitches and it's just not working out that day. They're hitting everything you're throwing up there and you're like, what in the world's going on? And you're taking an early shower. So it happens to everybody. I try to just make it into, I'm loosening up my arm, I'm getting ready, and then I'm going to go out and compete whenever the game starts.
Yeah, so you're not actually trying to fine tune your pitches in the pen, you're just trying to warm up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so that would make it so you would have, like you had a 10-year career in the major leagues.
Well, I thought I had a good routine. That was part of my success was knowing how to prepare, having a good
Clearly
routine,
you did.
sticking to that, and then going out there and hoping I had my atom ball, which was the one where they hit the line drives and they go right to somebody. So you have to have a lot of that as a pitcher as well.
What role do you think mental toughness and focus and confidence play? We talked about a little about that.
I think it's huge. I think the mental toughness allows you to overcome adversity in the game. There's going to be adversity in every game, whether it's the umpire, whether it's a ball you thought was foul, but they call it fair. You lose a challenge call, whatever it might be, an error in a particular inning. Whatever it is, there's going to be adversity. So the mental toughness absolutely has to be there. The confidence, some people say you got to have success. I always felt confidence came from preparation 100%. So once the game started, you felt comfortable, you done all your work, you prepare, you know who you're pitching against, you know who you are as a pitcher, you go out there, you compete, you tip your hat if you don't have a good game, you feel good about it if you do, but you go to the next day to get prepared for the next game. That for me builds the most confidence, and it did for me. That would be what I would say about confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think if you prepared, in the weeks before or a week before a game, when you get on the mound, I'm ready.
Nope.
Your confidence is boosted by your level of preparedness.
Well, your visualization skill, I think, helps a lot too. So back when I played, which was a long time ago, recognizing the batter in the batter's box. Who were they in the batter's box? Visualizing before the game as I was preparing as a starter, all the different things I was doing between starts. It was also that visualization. I'm pitching against a certain lineup. I'm pitching against certain batters. What do they look like? What are their strengths and weaknesses? I'm visualizing how I'm going to get them out when I'm throwing my side in between starts. I'm thinking about that particular lineup, whether it's the Yankees, the Twins, whoever, the Red Sox, whoever I may be pitching. I knew who was going to be in that lineup, how many lefties were going to be in there, how many right-handers, and trying to visualize them at the plate when I was throwing my side, and not trying to throw as hard as I could, but just trying to locate and throw pitches to spots and try to command, knowing that I was going to try to see and visualize those pitches in a game when they got there. I think visualization is a huge part of success in commanding baseball.
Yeah, I tell people now and then about studies about they did for throwing darts. I've mentioned it a few times where they studied 3 groups: guys who threw darts did very well, guys who never threw darts, and they broke it up to 3 groups. One group, the guys who throw darts, they had them throw and they measured, and then 2 weeks later they had them practice every day and they measured them at the end of 2 weeks. The guys who never threw, they had them practice again for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they measured again. the guys who didn't throw darts, they just in their mind pictured throwing darts. And again, measured the beginning and the end. At the end of 2 weeks, the guys who never threw darts, just in their mind, improved. So there's something to that skill acquisition when without actually throwing. If you're practicing, like you said, in your mind, how I'm going to throw this pitch, where is it going to go? Another thing I think happens is we were talking a bit about AI and scouting the other day, and Richard Feynman, he describes when people say, do you think a computer will ever think the way a human does? And he says, well, no, because we have planes that fly, but they don't fly like a bird. They fly differently. So computers will think differently. And he says, for example, if you see your wife in the distance, 300 yards away, and she flicks her hair a certain way, you really can't see her, but you see that little flick, you know that's your wife. Like we humans, we can pick up on those little subtle things. I think when you're visualizing those batters, subconsciously, you have picked up on some visual cues that are not really coming forward. You're not really thinking about, but you picked up on a little thing that, here's the right location for that sinker or that slider. Like you don't have a number on it. You haven't really thought about it fully, but just know that's the right spot. Have you had that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think when you equate that story about seeing your wife, or you see something in your mind's eye before it happens, if I
Yeah.
saw a silhouette when I was playing, I could almost tell you in a lineup, if you showed me 9 silhouettes, you just take the name off the jersey, faces and all that. You just show me the batting stance. I could tell you if they were a regular that played all the time, day to day in that lineup. I could tell you who those batters were just from a silhouette, just their batting
Yeah.
stance, what they look like. And so that was the visualization that we used back when we didn't have the video and the capabilities to break down pitch to pitch swings and those types of things. So I knew who those hitters were. I could see that in a distance. I could see that in my mind's eye. And that helped me. I knew how close they stood to the plate, how far. If the first time I pitched against them early in the year, a hitter stood close to the plate, but the second time I noticed that he's further from the plate. Why was that? How's he going to react to the pitches now? Did he do that just for
Yeah.
me? Did he do it just for me because of my style of pitching to him, because he knew me as a pitcher? Or was he working on something and maybe he wasn't as comfortable in the plate now? I had to try to figure that out as a pitcher. So
Right.
those were things that I think visualization helps you with in terms of putting together a game plan. You get in the game, and then the game plan changes because of the batter's changed his stance. He's changed his approach. Those types of things from maybe a month or two before when you threw against them in April. Now you're not seeing them again until July. What has happened? What has changed? Maybe you can see it in the statistics. Maybe you can't, but visually, you're going to notice that as a pitcher, 100%.
Yeah. Brad Osmus was saying something like that the other day too. It's like there's all that data and it helps. You needed it. But sometimes when you're in the game, things change. You have to adapt. And I think there are things that don't come up in the data because we don't have a way of measuring them yet. And those are things that guys like you, guys like Emo, to so many other great pitching coaches and pitchers that they know those things, but we just don't have a way of putting our finger on it or giving a number.
That's correct.
And,
I mean,
and I
so
think if you're fully into data all the way, like how heavily I use data and I'm known for that, I also recognize that there's a whole other level that has to be utilized too. The kind of things we're talking about.
Yeah, no question. Yeah.
Probably one of the other bigger things that I think it's really important is we talked a little bit about this is knowing who you are, like knowing what makes you special and unique, and then working on that to become great, the best version of you. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's huge. I think especially in today's game where we've talked earlier in the show about chasing spin numbers and rates and trying to create yourself or make yourself into something that you possibly can never reach. You can't achieve that goal of doing that. I think that knowing who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, should be who you are and how you pitch 100%.
Yeah.
You can't, back in my day and some of the pitching staffs I pitched on with our number one pitcher on the pitching staff, I couldn't be that guy. I wasn't the number one guy. So I couldn't pitch like Brett Saberhagen and Roger Clemens and, people like that on staffs that I pitched on. Because I wasn't that guy. So I didn't try to be that guy. I tried to do what I did well and
Well,
use my strengths to be successful and not compare myself in a negative way to somebody else because they had more velocity, maybe better breaking ball, those types of things. I had enough confidence and belief in what I was doing to be able to go out there and pitch like I pitched and not worry about those other components, what spin rates was. I was never a big velocity guy. I threw fairly hard for my day, but I never one time went to somebody after a game and asked them what my velo was that day. The main
yeah,
thing
I've
was
heard that too.
how successful was I? Did I make it 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 innings? And how were the hitters reacting to my stuff? If I made
Yeah.
it 6, 7, 8, or 9 innings, I knew my stuff was good. Velocity didn't matter. I knew my velocity was good enough. And if
Yeah.
I got hit around, I didn't worry about it. I just
Yeah.
went back to trying to make, like Emo said, I was trying to make my pitches better for my next start and wasn't worried about that type of data at that time.
Well, yeah, because you're not getting paid upon how fast you throw. You're getting paid upon how good your results are. You're getting
Correct.
outs and you're not giving up runs.
That's
You know,
correct.
I think the velo, the movement, and the other things are really important. And I'm trying to emphasize on the show that they should keep in mind what the real goal is, and that's to win, you know, and not just chase a metric like velocity or spin rate. And those are important, but they're only important if they let you win. And you were on the teams you were on because you were unique and you got the job done. Like those other pitchers that threw harder, maybe they got their job done, but you still both got the job done.
Correct. I
You know?
think that every pitcher that's on a major league staff is there for a reason. They can be
Yeah.
successful. They can get outs. They have deception. They have certain type of stuff. They have different looks. You see
Yeah.
you see the submarine guy, you see the left-handed sidearm guy. They all have a purpose and they fit into the game plan of how does all this work within the pitching staff and for the team to be successful. And that's how they're putting the staff together. They're not going to throw out there 13 guys that all
That
throw
are the
exactly
same.
the same. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
easy. It'd be easy in a 4-game series to hit if every single one of them looked exactly the same. So
Yeah.
I know that plays a part in putting together pitching staffs and situational pitchers and things like that. And pitchers got to be able to adapt to that too, because I know there's long relievers that get thrown into pitching in middle relief, and middle relievers get thrown into having to close. And it's they're there to get outs, and if they're there, the manager and the pitching coach and the whole organization feel good about them doing that. So
Yeah.
that goes a long way. Just the thing we keep playing off of is good command and getting people out.
Yeah. And like in that first book you have of mine, one of the things I wrote in a chapter was that for all the metrics, one of the most important things you have to do is to be different. Because if you're average in any metric, that's no good because hitters are used to hitting average. You want to be different. And a couple of pitching coaches that have been on here and scouts on this show have been talking about they're looking for different parts of the puzzle, guys who are different that are going to fit in their staff to fill a role, like you just said.
There's no question about that. I mean, you see kids that get drafted in the 25th round make it to the major leagues and they have a good career. It wasn't necessarily the first round guys. Most of those obviously make it to the big leagues, but a scout sees in a kid the deception that he has, and nobody takes good swings, and maybe the velo is not up to the major league average, but the breaking ball is major league average, or maybe it's better than major league average, or it's below major league average. Sometimes, below the hitting speed sometimes can be better than being above the hitting speed. It's like Emo says too. Pitching or hitting is about timing, and pitching is about disrupting the time. So
Absolutely.
all of that goes into the differences that pitching staffs make up, and that's what makes the game such a great game.
Yeah. What was the best piece of baseball advice you ever got?
I think because I was a smaller guy, I am a small guy. I was a little bit of an outlier with size and that type of thing. That just believe in myself, be who I am. Let the results of what I'm doing speak. Don't worry about what the naysayers are saying about you're not going to be tall enough, you're not going to be big enough, and all that kind of stuff. And I always thought that if I got good enough results and I was good enough as a pitcher, that would be recognizable and be a opportunity to get me to the next level every time. So I had to be, I had to be a good high school pitcher, and then I had to be a good college pitcher, and then a professional pitcher in the minor leagues. I had to be good, and then I had to get to the major leagues. And the results, got me to that level. And then I think the learning the preparation and making my pitches better and those types of things allowed me to stay there and have a long career as a pitcher at the major league level.
Well, that certainly worked out.
Yeah.
What advice would you offer a pitcher today?
A high school kid or a younger kid, I would say develop a good pitching delivery. Develop a delivery that's repeatable. Develop a delivery that's successful for you. Practice the way you want to pitch. Practice off of a pitcher's mound is very, very important for
I'm big
all
on that.
ages,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Start out learning to practice off of a pitcher's mound, throwing on the slope. Make the catcher get in different spots of the strike zone. Don't just be on the outer third of the plate all the time. Go out and have the catcher split his middle of the body on the outside corner. Have him move the center of his body off the outside corner. Do it on both sides of the plate. That to me would be huge for a young pitcher. Once they get that and they continue to grow and develop, then you continue to refine that. You make your pitches better. You get stronger, all those types of things, but never losing sight of the most important thing. And that's the ability to command the baseball, let your velocity continue to make you more successful, but do not forget about what made you a good pitcher.
That's right. I'm a big one on that too, like knowing who you are. Also, we talked a bit about Dan Hefner at DBU. Character. That's how they recruit on character. And I think character is you. Not only are you going to be a better teammate, it'll help you do the things you need to do as opposed to things you want to do. It'll help you ride out the difficult times and easy times and moderate that. So I think your character has a huge play in being successful.
There's no question about that. It adds a level of trust. The higher the character you have, in my opinion, it allows that coach to trust you. He knows you're going to be doing the right things. You're going to be the best student you can be at that university or wherever you might be, even in the professional game. They want trust. They want consistency. Character. Those are huge traits in character. And that just helps you not only in your baseball career, but in everything else that you're doing. But it's a huge factor. I mean, you got to be around somebody. As much as baseball players are around, they want people they can count on, that they can trust, that are consistent on and off the field. And when you can add those things in there to the ability you have, that gives you a really good shot at being very successful.
Yeah. And I mentioned too about a lesson my son had learned at DBU as well. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again in case people haven't heard it, was that in the lower levels in junior college, he didn't root against his fellow pitchers. He didn't root for them. He just they're competing for a job. And it wasn't until he got to DBU that he learned to get behind all of your players, all your pitchers, root for them, be a good teammate, and be there for them. And that when you do that, what he found was when he went to the minor leagues, he carried that with him. And so he wound up rooting for his other fellow pitchers. He really wants them to do well. And what happens is that they do that for you. And you all kind of lift each other up and to get that team chemistry that is so important, where everyone is really pushing for each other and not just for themselves,
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, how would you describe it?
I would say it's part of character.
It's a character trait, but it also, as you're talking about lifting people up, the competitive nature that they have together, it's good for everybody. It drives everybody to be more successful, to push each other, which in the team concept makes it a better team, makes it a better clubhouse, better
Yeah.
chemistry. Everybody's going to pat each other on the backside and say, "Hey, great job," or "Hey, get them next time. We're here for you. We're pulling for you. It'll work out. Can we help you?" Those types of things
Yeah.
make it easier for people to pull for you when you're that type of person. And then one person starts it and then it follows. And next thing you know, you just got a great team chemistry. And the teams
Yeah.
like right now in the playoffs and the ones that are going to make it to the World Series, they all got great chemistry in their clubhouses. And
Yeah.
that's all part of it. They don't win 100 games by pulling against each other. So great point there. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the show, I always put a list of 9 things that I thought a pitcher needs. I think a pitcher should have all of them. I think if a pitcher did have all of them, they'd be a Verlander or a Jarrett Cole. I think you could pull out 3 or 4 and develop, say, a finesse pitcher or a power pitcher or different types of pitchers out of these qualities. But I'd like you to look at the list and tell me what you think are your top 4, and I'll read them off so people listening can know what they are. They are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Okay. I wrote some of these down, Wayne, because I knew this was coming. I didn't know you were going to put it on the screen, but that helps me. Now I'm going to, I know you say a lot of people, they do this, and you're gonna come up with what the most common answers and things were. For me, number one is know who you are. So I'm going, number one is know who you are. 2, I'm going command. And with command, I think goes sequencing. So I don't know if you allow me to put those 2 things together or not, but command and sequencing, I think go hand in hand. 3, and I've talked about this a little bit on the show, is reading batters. Taking the information you have, but also the ability to read batters. What's going on a particular day? You're adapting and adjusting day to day, game to game, pitch to pitch. And then my last one is mental toughness. We talked about some of this on the show. Preparing yourself, being in the right mindset when the pitches have to be made, you execute, you visualize, you know where you can go with pitches, you know how to set people up, you handle the adversities of the game, whatever may come your way, falling behind early, battling, stay in the game, allowing your offense to come back. All those things make you a dependable and consistent pitcher in my eyes. All the rest of them are great too. You could name any 4 out of that list that you got. There's no question, and not be wrong in any of the ways you listed them. But for me, those would be the 4 that I would go right now or say were very important to me, and I think make up good character traits of a really good pitcher.
Yeah, that's a hard list to pick 4 from because you look at it, you say, "Hey, I want all of those,"
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And that's kind of the point of the show, is that you need all those qualities, and you'll notice on that list is max velocity. That's one of the things you need, but it's among a range of things that you also need.
No doubt. And it's easy to put that up there. It's easy to put that up there, number 1, but I think command, I'd rather have command with good velocity than max velocity with no command.
Yeah.
I think you can sustain and get outs better that way, sustain your career longer that way. And it's hard to argue against the max velocity, but if you don't command it, you can't sequence it, you can't compete with it, you don't have some kind of movement with it. All the things you listed have to go with the max velocity, just like they all kind of go together.
Yeah.
No
Otherwise, you have 14 pitch at bats that end in a home run and 11 walks in a game.
That's right. Those are
You
no
got to
good.
have some other parts in there.
Yeah, you want to get hitters out as quick as you can, not 14 pitches every batter, for sure. No doubt.
Well, Scott, it's been great having you on the show. And every time I do a show, I learn a little bit something more too. So thank you.
Well, I had a great time, Wayne. It's a pleasure to know you now, to meet you. Thanks for having me. anything else I could ever do for you, please holler. And I'll be following your show now for sure, because I started watching a little bit of who was on your podcast. So you're bringing a lot of really good people with a lot of great backgrounds and knowledge, and people ought to watch this show, not because I'm on it, because you're doing a great job getting the right people and getting the right questions out there.
Oh, thank you. It's funny. When I started the show, I figured I'd invite 10 friends and 2 would show up. Well, 10 showed up and 10 more came up. It's
There
like
you go.
there are a lot more of us than you would think that are saying that hey, wait a minute, there's a lot more things involved with pitching. And why don't we talk about those? And I think a lot of people are saying, I'd like to be a voice to talk about it, you know?
No question. You did a great job. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
See
day.
you. All right. You too.
Don't forget to hit subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released. Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com.